Now that we've talked about still life and finding shapes in still life, it is time to start drawing a still life, and we are going to be basing our drawing on this picture here. The first thing we need to do is we need to draw some guidelines on our paper. That will help us decide where to place the items on our drawing and how big the items should be in relation to each other. So the first thing you do is you draw a vertical line and a horizontal line, just dividing your paper in half. Now don't worry about measuring and making these perfect. This is just a guide. Also, it's very important that you draw them lightly. Your guidelines just guide your drawing, and they get erased in the end, and if you've pushed real hard, then you're kind of stuck with them. So be sure that you draw them very lightly. The first thing I'm going to start with is the bowl, and if I picture halfway on this paper, on the actual still life, I see that the bowl is below the halfway mark. So I know on my paper it has to be below the halfway mark. The other thing that I'm thinking about while I'm drawing this is the space to the edge of the picture is smaller than the size of the actual bowl. So I need to be sure that the spaces I leave on each side are smaller than the actual bowl. And again, we're displaying in basic shapes. You don't have to worry about making it perfect right now. Then I'm going to draw the shape of the bowl. Now you do not have to draw all of the fruit you see. I want you to pick the pieces that you think are the most interesting. You can do all of the fruit, but you don't feel like you have to make your picture exactly like this still life. We're just using this kind of as a guide. And the first thing I think I'm going to do is look at this apple down here, and I see that I could represent that apple with a circle because the apple kind of feels circular in shape. So I'm going to sketch in an apple. When I look at the apple, I kind of think in my mind, all right, the apple's about that big and the bowl's about that big. So the apple and the bowl are about the same. So when I look at my apple and my bowl, I want them to be about the same. Let's say that you drew your bowl and you didn't think about the size of the apple. You might end up with this little tiny apple down here, and that does not look accurate. The apple is about the same height as the bowl. So make sure you think about that. And remember, when you make a mistake drawing, you fix it first, then erase. That way you don't keep drawing the same thing over and over and over again. So be sure that you get your apple nice and big. And then I'm going to look at the different fruit. Now there's a plum over here. If I compare the plum to the apple, I see the plum is a little bit smaller, so I'm going to make a smaller circle here. Remember, we are just drawing simple shapes. That way, if we need to change something, we haven't spent a lot of time drawing detail. Now I'm going to put this apple here, and I see here's the vertical line, and this apple is right next to that vertical line. And it takes up quite a bit of the bowl, about half of the bowl. So I'm going to draw that apple shape in there. And then I see this lemon. The lemon is more of an oblong shape. And when I look at this, I see that the lemon comes out from behind that apple. And it curves around. And then it comes down, and it's almost, if you look right here, almost to the edge of the bowl. So I'm just going to put an oblong shape that comes about to the end of the bowl. So now I have an apple, another apple, I have the lemon and a plum. If I want to put grapes in, you need to make the grapes bigger than you think they should be. It's tempting for people to draw little tiny grapes like this and just make a whole great big blob of grapes. But that's not what I see here. When I look here, I can actually count the grapes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 right here, and they're rather large. So if I'm drawing those grapes, I need to think about making fewer but larger than I think I should. So if you think your grapes look too big, they're probably just right. And you can see mine aren't hitting the same place in the bowl as theirs, and that's okay. I'm going to make a couple hanging down here. Make a couple go in different directions. So think about making your grapes large. Behind there, I see an orange. And then I see some grapes peeking out over here. And I see another apple here. So I would like you to go through, look at the fruit you see, try to make large, simple shapes to represent the different pieces of fruit. So number 1, draw your guidelines. Number 2, sketch in your bowl. And then number 3, start laying in the shapes of your fruit. I cannot emphasize enough, you have to draw lightly, because in the end, there are some things, like this part of the bowl, you need to erase. And if you draw too hard, that won't erase and it will ruin your picture. So make sure you draw very, very lightly. Okay, go ahead, guidelines, bowl, fruit.